Hello, Bumblebees. This is unfortunately not Teddy here. My name's Sai. If you didn't see in the community notes, Teddy is taking a bit of a break to take care of some personal matters. In the meantime, me and possibly others are going to fill in for the time being. With that being said, sit back and relax for this week's reading of How Midoriya Accidentally Formed a Gang, otherwise titled Aniki, the Green Spiral Hero, by Sckribe. Please make sure to check the original fic on AO3 in the description below. Chapter 3 Green. Summary. Izuku going through first and some of second grade, starting a trend / restarting a tradition, getting a nickname back, and of course, making friends. Quite soon, the year rolled around to when Izuku and Katsuki were 6, and so started going to elementary school proper in the first grade. Quicker than ever before, at only 2 months at most had Izuku been reconfirmed as the leading figure he was among his entire year group at that point. His own class had many familiar faces, and so barely took a week to pull in the few new kids. From there, it was only another month before eventually Izuku's smarts, and he had only been getting smarter, and Katsuki's overall demeanor, he had certainly remained quite the cool kid with his standoffish yet restrained demeanor. He'd managed to attract the attention of a few of the older kids during a break. From there, only a month later, and Izuku had ended up bringing in those first older kids and much of their class. Izuku surprising many with how he was still able to help them with academics. It had once been noticed that Izuku had been helping an older student with some math homework, certainly a touch above his normal age level, which had quickly led to an out-of-hours meeting between the teacher and Inko about considering placing him into a maybe higher-level class, or the like. This, however, was just as quickly, though quite politely, shut down by Inko, citing both that he and Katsuki were practically inseparable, and more generally that she was quite happy with her son's social development. Her eyes were already visibly watery after hearing how many other kids waved or said hello, or just gave a smile to her baby boy as they went to meet the teacher. And she didn't want to take any risks there. The teacher was reasonable enough and just asked that she remembered the option if she had changed her mind. At the same time as the meeting, she had let Izuku split off to go play with some of the other kids. Plenty who knew him, but some who didn't, and Katsuki of absolute course. Both of the boys walked to their homes, and Mitsuki and Masaru trusted their son to be safe. He was already keeping Izuku safe too, after all, and for the practical reality of it, it certainly smoothed the nerves that were left the other kid that can summon explosions at will. Very effective self-defense, to say little. Of course, being a touch after school hours, a few janitors were also about picking up. Now, all of these came together as, during a lull in the playing about, the oldest kids, that Izuku hadn't made friends with yet, had started jeering at a nearby janitor, an older man with a tortoiseshell mutation. One who had a snack with him threw it down and in his direction, making a new mess. And they found it quite funny. "Hey, that's mean!" But Izuku didn't care for it even a single bit, as was quite clear by him determinedly marching over and thoroughly reminding the older kids that what they did was mean and not nice. They shouldn't do that. Now, these kids clearly weren't the type to be cowed by one smaller kid. However, they were pretty dang close when basically every other kid in earshot started in on them too. The steady crackle from Katsuki pushed it well over the edge, and the older kids ran off. Then, as all the other kids started going off to play again, seeming like the situation had been resolved, Izuku pulled an Izuku move and actually went up to the janitor. Izuku said, quickly reading his name tag, "Sorry about that, Midoriya. That was mean of them." The man just gave a patient wave of his hand and said, "Don't worry about it. You go back to playing and I'll worry about the mess." Izuku, of course, worried away, and in fact took a look around at the school and noticed all the work they were doing. And he remembered it. Because you see, while he didn't do anything more than give a thank you to Midoriya that day, only one day later, after looking something up at home and soon confiding in Katsuki, one who of course went with his idea, and his mom, who smiled and cried some while hugging him and firmly believing herself the luckiest mother in the world with such a kind boy, and not much later received another, "Your son is the best possible influence on my son," kind of call from Mitsuki. Izuku did two simple but small things that next day. Izuku shared the story with a rapidly listening class and some others as well over the lunch break. The first time Izuku had ever truly publicly spoken bar start of year introductions. Of course, also very much driving home the lessons of be nice to the janitors. Not all Japanese schools even have them and such, and that marked the firm success of the first time Izuku had ever used his authority, the fact that it was successful and for a good cause, only cementing that yes, Izuku has a proactive kind of authority too. He is also to be actively listened to and can make new rules. Be nice to janitors/service people. Then come the end of the day came the second thing they did. He and Katsuki stayed behind and helped clean up, not just for a set number of minutes, but until the cleaning for the day seemed to be done. Going by the janitors, of course, the janitors and Mr. Ito, who by pure coincidence was actually the head of the local janitors union, took note of the gesture and found it touching and figured it would be a nice memory to keep them going for a long while, and perhaps share as a cute little anecdote. Then, the two did it again, and again, and again, and kept it up, and over time pulled in one or two extra kids from their class too. And it wasn't until a week and a day had passed that they realized, oh, that's more than a well-meaning gesture, they meant it. So Mr. Ito, who had already interacted with them, went up to the kids helping clean, all stepping back, and by now, Izuku and Katsuki naturally stepping forward and sincerely thanked them. Of course, Izuku, being Izuku, soon enough had managed to truly make friends with Mr. Ito, and from there the other janitors and such. And of course, this only helped expand his network. All the way to adults, too. Oh, and the cleaning up only spread quickly to the rest of his classmates, and from them to most of the year, to the point the teachers started leaving about 10 minutes at the end of each day for it. Inko really did start crying when Izuku asked if they could bake something together for Mr. Ito. "You've earned calling me Haru, little buddy, and the rest of the staff at the school for the end of the year." So, after the final day of first grade, Izuku and Katsuki stayed behind, and with his mom's help having brought them, left the cookies and a thank you card with the main office. Though they were asked to wait for a moment, apparently Mr. Ito had something for them back. What he had was a small stack of papers, some stapled together, letters of recommendation for UA and the future for Izuku. Mine's just a rough draft, but I'm sure I'll be needing to add more in the next few years. Because of course he had always been vocal about wanting to go, and stapled to Ito's was another simple paper, stating that all the signatures below on it were in agreement with the written letter. It had the signatures from all of the rest of the janitors at the school and nearly all the rest of the support staff as well. Izuku, of course, was well old enough to understand the meaning behind it all, and gave Mr. Ito's legs a crying hug. Not that it seemed Inko was too far behind, she had even been given Mr. Ito's personal number to remind me about the recommendation for the little buddy later. "I'm quite happy in my marriage as is," Mr. Ito chuckled, and Inko tittered along with the older man as well, more than used to gathering phone numbers from fellow parents and the like, take it in the spirit it was meant in. Lastly, quite big personally to Izuku, similar to how he called Katsuki Kachan, Katsuki had found his own nickname for Izuku. On the walk back to the Bakugo house, where both families would have dinner, Katsuki said, "Hey Izuku, you know how you still call me Kachan?" "Yeah, do you not?" "No, I like it a lot. I just wanted to ask." "Well, I kind of want a nickname for you too, since you call me Kachan. Is it alright if I call you Isan?" Katsuki may have missed the exact words Izuku said, but the hug from Izuku was generally a good sign, one he certainly wasn't complaining about or failing to return. Yes, the Midoriyas had just started to thrive. Inko had even started to get closer to looking as well as Mitsuki did, something that the latter was wildly happy for her closest friend about. Surrounded out Izuku's first year in elementary, making waves around him, further even than might be assumed, as people are prone to talk to each other, especially when, say, the principal of the school noticed that one of the first grade classes has already started picking up the tradition of spending time to clean up at the end of each day, after the end even at first, even though they swore that they were only just rolling that back into the curriculum, from the upper grades down. and finding that the source of it all was one kind green beacon. Soon enough, in second grade, just a couple of months in, something else exciting happened. They took a field trip. It was a few towns over to a music museum. They even shared the trip with a local class their own age. It was even more exciting than doing the fundraiser thing. The school didn't need the funds, but it was an introduction to these things and a fun enough tie-in to math for the kids, and some extra money for emergencies never hurt. So, in the curriculum, it stayed. Except, it wasn't all good, because the other school was being mean to one of their own classmates, a boy with 6 arms. That's so cool, Izuku found. And their teacher wasn't too nice either. He didn't seem to be too bothered, but Izuku, being Izuku, still went up to him. "Hi," Izuku said. "I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's nice to meet you." The calm boy nodded back. "I'm Shoji Mezzo. It's nice to meet you too. Thank you for saying that about my quirk." Izuku slightly laughed and said, "I didn't realize I said that out loud. Are you alright? That wasn't nice of them to leave you behind." "It's okay. It happens sometimes." "No, I don't think it is. Oh, do you want to join me and my best friend? This is Bakugo Katsuki." Bakugo just nodded and said, "Come on, Isan's always got the best ideas." A few times, one or a small group of the kids from the other school almost got their nerve to bully Shoji, only they heard a faint crackle and soon followed the clenched fist source to a slightly snarling face, and showing great wisdom elected to back off. And so Izuku and Shoji ended up walking and talking together in relative peace about the exhibits in the museum. Walking in peace about the exhibits in the museum or just about whatever. And with that, the three just clicked into place. Izuku's endless drive for kindness and seeming zest for life itself, Bakugo's stern certainty in himself and his best friend, and Shoji's firm and steady presence. So, of course, near the end, Izuku eventually asked what life was like around his town. And, well, having had time to meet, Shoji opened up a touch about how he was generally alone or frowned at in school, and quite a number of other little things that didn't paint the best picture, even if Shoji put in a kinder frame. So when Shoji seemed sad that they had to part at the end of the field trip, Izuku, being Izuku, said that he and Bakugo would be glad to still visit, maybe on the weekends. And they did. And from there, a friendship began to grow, and from there the seeds of something else were planted. A few more months by, and a number more visits between the friends. Shoji at times opened up a little bit more and more, and one day when he couldn't visit because of this big storm rolling through that his mom didn't want him caught in, Izuku asked if she could please ring Mr. Ito, since Izuku had something very important to ask him. After a few rings, the phone was answered with a familiar voice saying, "Ito resident speaking." Replying to the phone, Izuku said, "Hello, Mr. Haru. Can I ask you something?" Across the line, a gentle chuckle was heard. "You sure could ask. What is it, little buddy?" Izuku paused a moment and said, "Do you know anybody that can help organize a big fundraiser?" "A fundraiser? What for?" "Well, I made a really good friend a few towns over, and me and Katsuki take the train to meet him nearly every weekend, but the people there are all mean to him, even the adults, just because he has a few extra arms, even though he's nothing but nice and patient. It's not right, even if he thinks it is. And he says he's heard his parents talking at night that they want to move, that they could afford the rent for an apartment, but they just can't save up enough to pay all the extra they need. So I heard about fundraisers from school, and I want to do one to help his family move. I know another apartment in the building I live in opened up recently at least." On the other end of the line, Ito Haru only gave a slight hum to show he was listening. He knew what discrimination sounded like. He slowly tapped his fingers along his shell. Once, twice, again, along imperceptible remnants of permanent marker on the surface and chips at the edge. Ito Haru knew what discrimination felt like. With vigor he had thought he'd lost many years ago. He looked out of a nearby window into the heart of the raging storm, and he spoke across the line. "Izuku, with Sasuno as my witness, I will do everything in my power to help you with this, or may he strike me down." As if in response, a bright flash of light and a great boom rang out, audible through the phone. "I think I might know someone I went to community college with. Give me 2 days and I'll call you back at around this time, okay?" "Absolutely. Thank you so much, Haru." "Anytime at all, little buddy. Gladly." And hung up the phone. At the Midoriya apartment, Izuku went and hugged his mom, gladly saying he agreed, a very proud hug of his own in return. At the Ito residence, Haru got up, kissed his wife, and went to get dressed in his absolute best. He had people to meet and some old favors to call in, although he suspected he might not need them, if he could just have a few words first. Hello, Bumblebees. That wraps up How Midoriya Accidentally Formed a Gang by Sckribe. Thank you all so much for listening. This podfic is brought to you as a Project Cyclone production. More info about other projects we've worked on in the description, as well as links to our website and Instagram. If you want to support Project Cyclone and all our future productions, please consider joining our Patreon or sharing our content through word of mouth. We really appreciate your support. It makes it possible for me and my friends behind the scenes to keep making content for you guys. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on whatever platform you may be listening to us. Sweet dreams and a restful hibernation to you all.